All right, so today we're digging into something pretty wild, a legal defense for a piece of tech called Enkai. Now, what's so strange about that? Well, Enkai hasn't actually been accused of anything. This is a preemptive strike, and it brings up a really fascinating question.
I mean, really think about that for a second. How do you possibly build a case against arguments that don't even exist yet, arguments that are just floating around in the realm of what if and public fear? Well, the people behind the Enkai system decided to get ahead of it, and their approach is pretty unique. Let's break it down.
So instead of waiting around to get hit with criticism, they just went ahead and dropped this document called the Enkai Architectural Risk Clarification and Public Interest Rebuttal. Their whole game plan is pretty simple, actually. Figure out every possible thing someone could criticize and then shoot it down, not with vague promises, but with the cold, hard facts of how the system is actually built.
And right from the very beginning, they set a really specific tone. You can see it in this quote right here. They're making it crystal clear that this isn't some kind of protest or advocacy piece. No, they're framing this as neutral, expert testimony. They want regulators to judge the Enkai system on its blueprints, on its architecture, not on fear.
Okay, so to even begin to understand their defense, we first have to get a handle on the technology itself. The entire document, their whole argument, is built on this one simple idea. You can't have a fair debate about something if you don't know how it actually works under the hood.
So this brings us to what makes Enkai, well, Enkai. First off, it's totally decentralized. There's no big central server, no single company pulling the strings. Everything happens peer-to-peer, just directly between people. And this is huge. You are always in control of your own data. It never gets collected or stored somewhere else. And to top it off, there's no public broadcast, no news feed, and you only participate if you choose to. It's all based on consent.
And here's the secret sauce that makes it all possible: cryptographic verification. Now, don't let the name scare you. The easiest way to think about it is selective privacy, not total anonymity. It's like this. The system uses math to let you prove something specific, say that you're over 21, without you ever having to show your driver's license with your name, your address, and your exact birthday on it. The math just gives a simple yes or no.
All right, so now that we've got the tech basics down, we can get to the main event, confronting the claims. The document basically takes all the potential criticisms it can think of and groups them into a few major fears. Let's get into the first one.
And here it is, the big one. This always comes up whenever there's new privacy tech: lawlessness. The fear is that if you don't have a central authority watching over everything, the whole system will just become a playground for criminals, for tax dodgers, for all sorts of bad stuff.
So the Enkai document hits this fear head-on by pointing right back to its own blueprints. The common assumption is that privacy just helps crime. But they argue that their architecture is specifically designed to stop data from being collected in one place, which means criminals can't get the scale or the reach they need to do real damage. And as for taxes, the system isn't a bank. The legal duty to pay your taxes is still on you, the individual, just like it's always been.
This quote just nails their entire point. They're basically arguing that critics are confusing what's convenient for big institutions, like having all the data in one easy-to-search place, with what's actually required by law. The system doesn't get rid of compliance, it just changes how you get there.
Okay, on to the second big fear. This one is all about a loss of control, specifically for governments. You know, if there's no central company to subpoena, no one to serve a warrant to, how can law enforcement possibly do its job? How can a country stay secure without a central point to monitor?
And again, they just flip the whole assumption on its head. The fear is that no central monitoring makes us less safe. But their argument is that having one giant centralized database is actually the biggest security risk of all. It's just a giant, juicy target for hackers. By being decentralized, the system is actually stronger. And oversight isn't gone, it's just transformed. It means you have to go back to good old-fashioned due process, targeting specific people, instead of just grabbing everyone's data at once.
And this quote right here is the critical legal point. Oversight is transformed, not eliminated. The Constitution does not require centralized custody. They're arguing the system is designed to work within the laws we already have. Just because the tech is new, it doesn't mean our legal principles have to change.
All right, the last major fear they tackle is a big one: societal destabilization. Could a decentralized system like this be a threat to our established institutions? Could it become a new channel for misinformation that messes with social order?
The rebuttal to this is super direct. When it comes to misinformation, they say the architecture itself is the defense. There's no algorithm, no way for things to go viral, no amplification. It just wasn't built to be a public broadcast platform.
And as for threatening institutions, their response is pretty blunt. That's called market competition, and last I checked, competition isn't a crime.
This leads to this really powerful reframing of the whole issue. What critics might see as the system's greatest weakness, the fact that there's no central control, the document says is actually its most important safeguard. It's a feature, not a bug, protecting it from a single point of failure or from being manipulated.
So when you step back and look at all these arguments, what's the common thread? What's the one idea that ties all these rebuttals together? Well, it all boils down to a single, powerful concept. This right here is the absolute core of their entire philosophy. The whole point of the Enkai system is to make a fundamental shift away from having to trust institutions and towards trusting mathematical verification.
The argument is actually pretty simple when you think about it. Instead of having to trust the company's privacy policy, which could change tomorrow, or trusting that a database won't get hacked, you just trust the math. The math proves things directly. It doesn't have a profit motive, and it can't be pressured into changing its mind.
So, where does this all leave us? What's the big takeaway? Well, this preemptive defense isn't really just about one system. It's trying to propose an entirely new way, a new standard of proof for how we should evaluate all kinds of new technologies in the future.
The document's final challenge is a simple one. It's essentially saying to regulators and critics, don't tell us what you're afraid our system might do. Show us. Based on the actual code, based on the real architecture, show us how it can do that harm. It's a demand to replace speculation with proof.
And that's really the question this whole thing leaves us with. As we keep building this next generation of technology, the Enkai document forces us to choose. Are we going to write our rules based on our fears of how things used to work? Or are we going to write them based on the provable facts of the architectures being built right now?